So one of the biggest problems I've encountered in my training is my schedule. And that's because I'm a shift worker. So I have to conform my entire life, training included, around my shift and whatever shifts that they give me. So in this video, I'm going to be telling you how I combated that problem and how you can too. This video isn't strictly just for shift workers. It is for anybody who just needs a little advice on how to train around a busy schedule, work schedule, or life's daily tasks, etc. Some people have kids. I don't, very young, but yeah. One of the biggest misconceptions is that if your schedule isn't consistent, then your training can't be consistent, and that is so far from the truth to a certain extent. You don't train despite the shift work or your inconveniences or busy schedule. You train around it. So let's talk about why traditional routines don't work for shift workers. So in a regular or scheduled program, you have everything set. You wake up at the same time, you can go to bed at the same time. You more or less have everything you have to do on a daily basis around the same time. Whereas for shift workers, everything is the inverse. You have to sleep at randomized times based on your shift. You don't have a set schedule, and you are going to have to cater everything to that schedule. And thus, your body is also going to have to adjust to suit, which it never truly does. Speaking from experience. When you have a regular schedule, your sleep is fragmented, which also affects your nervous system and adds extra stress to your entire body in every single way, both physically and mentally. But let's talk about how we can combat this and work around it. One important thing to know before we even get into it is that if you force a strict training program or schedule on yourself, then you are going to run into burnout, you're going to run into fatigue, and you might run the risk of getting injured and even worse, which is quitting overall. Because if you get burnt out mentally, then you won't want to do anything physically, and we don't want that. We want longevity in our training. Let's look at the core rule, which is flexibility is a non negotiable. So my recommendation, based on my experience, is that you should train based on the shifts or the things that you have to do. Me, for example, if I work a 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift, then that's actually my best shift because then I can go to sleep the night before, wake up, work, train in the evening, have dinner, and get some rest. However, if I have to work a night shift, which is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., whether it's the day I have to work or the day after, I will always prefer to take it easy or take it light or not even train at all because I can calculate that as a rest day just to give my body some time to recover because you're already going to be putting yourself under so much stress by going to work from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. You train based on what shifts you're working and how recovered you are. And you also have to take into account your training volume. Training times change, but the intent remains the same. You want to get your quality sessions in, so prioritize that when you're programming your training for the week. If you know what your week is going to look like in the upcoming week, then you're going to place your quality sessions where you know you can do it, and your easy sessions on days that are less flexible. As I said before, you got to focus on your weekly volume. At least that's what I like to focus on. However, I know we are all human, we are not perfect. If you do miss a day, that is okay. Okay, that is okay. That does not mean that you have to make up for that day and go and force a training session in where you cannot. That is going to lead to injury, and injury is going to lead to furthering your time away from actually doing the work you have to do. So do not force days that you missed. This is very crucial. It's something I run into before, and it's something that got me injured. And I can tell you, injuries are not nice. I've had to stay out of training for months at a time because I was too stubborn, because I had the wrong mentality, because I just wanted to push through. You got to make sure you track your mileage, make sure you track all of your workouts. What you don't know is what will end up coming back to haunt you. So make sure there's nothing you don't know about. You track your calories, track your workouts, track everything so that everything is accommodated for. For those of you who are like myself and you like to train in the evening slash nighttime, don't. If you value your sleep at all, it's really bad for your sleep. It's gonna raise your heart rate well above what it should be before you decide to go to bed, and it's going to make it harder for you to sleep. It's going to make your sleep worse when you do fall asleep, and you're just overall going to feel a lot worse than if you were to train a little earlier on in the evening. So I'd suggest, if you're going to bed at 9, 10, I'd suggest you wrap up your training by 7 or 6 to give yourself the best chance to recover for the next session after. Especially because when you have an irregular schedule, sleep is your best friend. Now, I try to make my sleep as routine as possible. I actually prioritize my sleep. I've found that if I get about 7.5, 8 hours, I can perform optimally every day. Once I go below 7, that's where it starts to get a bit iffy. 6 is danger zone for me. And lack of sleep, even by 1 or 2 hours, can lead to injury on that day. So if you have a quality session on Monday, make sure that you get proper sleep the night before. You got to learn how to listen to your body without making excuses. So you're going to run into a lot of fatigue and you're going to be tired. But you got to be able to distinguish whether or not you're tired versus just being lazy. Sometimes it can be hard to distinguish the two. But you just got to get yourself out of bed and you got to keep going. You got to get that session done. I know I spoke a lot about listening to your body, but this is also a mental thing as well. You got to listen to your mind. Sometimes there'll be that voice in the back of your head that tells you not to do a session just because maybe you might feel a little bit tired, but that's not a good enough excuse to not go get that session done. So train yourself to know the difference. And you don't have to train at 100% all the time. That is definitely not what I am preaching. That is a recipe for disaster. I'd rather train at 70% for years to come rather than 100% for a couple of months and then you run into some injury and yeah, that's it for you and your entire future in whatever sport you're doing. So yeah, be mindful of that. Progress means consistency over time. It's not going to be one day of hard work. It's going to be months and years of dedicated work over and over. And you can't get those months and years if you're injured. So let's talk about the most important thing, the mental shift that changed everything for me. I stopped asking the question of did I follow the plan perfectly? And I started asking the question of did I do what my body allowed me to do today? Did I do what my schedule allowed me to do today? And that really opened my mind and it changed my perspective on how I look at training, especially as a shift worker. There's a guilt that comes with setting a standard for yourself that is unrealistic or too high. And when you don't meet that standard, that's when you start to cave mentally. You start to be hard on yourself. And that's not what you want. It messes you up, it stresses you up for no reason. You're human, and at the end of the day, we all need a break too, right? Nobody is perfect. At the end of the day, you've got to know what you're capable of on a given day, and you've got to meet the standard that is realistic, not a standard that you've seen somebody else on YouTube have for themselves that you know fully well you can't make. Like shit, some people will watch a video of a professional athlete, see their training, and be like, I want to go do that. I'm gonna go try now. And then when they get humbled, they doubt themselves, they give up. No, you got to work at the level that you are at, and then build from there. To wrap things up, regardless of your schedule, you can be fit, you can be strong, and you can compete in sports. You just have to be smart about your training. I hope this video helped. Let me know down below what shifts you guys might work or what your daily struggles might be like with regard to training, and I hope you guys enjoy. See you in the next video.